You got to have that prayer in the forefront. Who do I need in this season of my life, for this vision that you've given me? Because I don't believe he would just give you the vision and don't give you who or what you need to make sure the vision becomes what it needs to be.
What's up, family? This is your girl getting adjusted in the chair, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and you are listening to the Woman Evolve podcast. I usually ask at this point, how are you? But given the fact that I just had surgery, I'm going to skip to the me part, and then we'll come back to the you part, and then we could just see how things are going. I am almost 2 weeks post-operation, and I had the surgery people just call it ACDF, but it stands for anterior cervical discectomy and fusion. And what it is did I explain this already? I don't know if I explained this already, but they cut, my surgical tape is still on my neck, but they open your neck, move your vocal cords and esophagus, and find the cervical spine, remove the herniated disc in my case that was compressing the spinal cord, replace it with like a spacer in between, and then put like metal plates and screws in. And that sometimes when I walk myself through exactly what happened, it helps me to understand why I feel the way that I feel, because I go back and forth. I vacillate between being in a lot of pain and feeling fine. I feel at this point, like pain management is under control. I was not at all prepared for the level of pain I felt immediately after surgery. I'm pretty tough. It takes a lot for me to say something like hurt me. That's emotionally or physically. I talked to the lady about it, so no need to judge. But I think that I was prepared for my throat to hurt. A lot of what I looked up online had a lot to do with my throat hurting. What I wasn't prepared for was the muscle spasms. So evidently the position that they put you in to perform the surgery, they push your shoulders back, but move you forward and tilt your head up. And I had so much pain in my neck and my shoulders. And then I'm allergic to some pain medication. So they were giving me something that wasn't addressing the pain at all. So those nights in the hospital were really, really difficult. But I am home. So a part of them, moving the vocal cords and esophagus, means that there's inflammation in your throat. So even right now, it feels like I have this huge lump in my throat. My voice sounds a lot better. I went through a few days where I could only whisper or not speak at all. And yeah, this has been quite the experience. I will tell you, before I knew I had to have surgery, I was one of those people, I'm not going to let that trampoline didn't whoop me. I'm getting back on the trampoline. When I found out I had surgery, I was that trampoline really ate. That trampoline really ate my lunch. I'm going to give it to you. I'm with you when you're right. I'm never going to hate on you. That trampoline ate me up. With all due respect, ate me up. And if I never stepped on a trampoline again, I'd be fine. I'd be A-okay. At this point, there's nothing to prove. I haven't gone to the doctor yet. Like I said, I'm almost 2 weeks post-op. This is the most that I've probably spoken. But I'm going to go to the doctor. I have to do physical therapy just to get some of my range of motion and stuff back. And they said it's just a long, hard recovery. So even when I found out about it and I was looking it up, so ACDF recovery online, it literally says 6 to 12 weeks for daily activities. six to 12 weeks is such a large range in everybody. And that's like with a normal surgery with no complications. And thankfully I haven't had any complications. It's a little something oozing from underneath these steri strips. I don't know what to expect when they fall off, but like I said, I'll go to the doctor. Based off of when I had the surgery, it would have put me right at the 6-week mark for us to have Woman Evolve. And I really went back and forth about whether or not to have conference, because 6 weeks, I'm like, listen, I'm going to do all the right things. I'm going to blow through recovery. I'll be fine. I'll be ready to go in 6 weeks. It left no room for complications, left no room for, and it's like 6 to 12 weeks. Like, I really believe that I'm that girl, but, in the event that I was just this girl and not that girl, it left no room for error. And with the economy being the way it is, people making plans, I just felt like it was the right thing to do to try and postpone as soon as possible, which was really, really hard for me because it also felt like failure to because it's like at 6 weeks, like, okay, what if I'm fine? What if it hurt? Like maybe it is going to hurt. Maybe I am going to jack myself up a little bit trying to get it done, but at least, I show up for other people and I honor my commitments. And I went through this whole, Jesus sacrificed his body. I was just trying to find a way. But ultimately it took me really not feeling like putting myself and my health first, even if I have the best case scenario, isn't failure. Because, if I have the worst, and I won't, right? But if I did have the worst case scenario, which I have to see as a possibility, given the fact that I didn't necessarily want to have surgery, but I had surgery. I don't want there to be any complications, but the reality that there could be complications is real. And, I feel like it would have been more justified to postpone if I had complications, but to postpone and for it to be like, well, look, you breezed through recovery and you would have been fine by this time just makes me, would have felt like, well, I put myself first and I could have done it. I'm still processing. I'm just sharing with you how I'm doing. It was really hard to not see postponing as failure. I guess if you haven't heard, I've made the decision to postpone the Woman Evolve conference, which is at the end of July. And like I said, probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done. I'm like, well, what if they go without? What if they get to have conference without me? But I'm like, God has trusted me with this vision and to steward it. So I feel responsible for making sure that I'm there covering it from just a spiritual standpoint. And there's no way that I'm going to be there and not be there because I don't have to do anything. I don't know. I weighed a lot of options. I know I've disappointed and upset a lot of people in making that decision, but I've been overwhelmed by the amount of people who felt a sense of relief and even pride, literally people saying that they're proud of me for putting my health first and taking care of myself. And I'm just prayerful. I'm really, really grateful. Everyone with the city and the venues and the hotels, they've been really, really kind and just being patient and understanding. We've had an incredible history with the city of Atlanta, and we want to continue to build that relationship. So they've been really great. But I know that this isn't ideal for anybody. It's not. This is a big decision that has a lot of consequences and ramifications and problem solving connected to it. And it's just not an ideal circumstance for anybody. And so when we talk about this idea of going rogue, I feel like it fully challenges me to live up to the very thing that I've been talking to you all about this year, which is what does it look like for you to break your own rules? What does it look like for you to follow the voice of God? And I just knew, and praying about it, that my only reasons for not wanting to postpone came down to me not necessarily trusting God, to me believing that I'm not maybe as valuable as the things that I do. And so I feel like that's been one of the things I've had to like walk with and confront throughout this process, is like finding value in myself outside of what I do in my relationships with my husband, my children, my friends. Like I'm just not able to show up in the way that I'm used to showing up, and still believing myself to have value outside of that has been a lesson in going rogue for me. You know, another thing that I've been marinating with, dealing with throughout this process is grief, because I mean, literally, it was just such a normal day. We had sent my daughter off to prom. I was outside walking with Ella, like, and to have this accident on the trampoline has it just stirred up the reality of grief, of how quickly my plans, my idea of what my life should look like, what my children and parents and my husband and my parents are experiencing throughout this, and like seeing it hurt them, seeing like it's just been a grief situation, a heavy situation. And you know, I'm on social media like many of you. I see stories all the time of like a person's life is radically changed with one phone call, one drive, one doctor's report, and you're grieving the life that you once knew. And I've been reading this book. It's by Megan Fate Marshman, and it's called Relaxed. It's walking with the one who is not worried about a thing. And there's a portion in the book where she talks about grief. And if I can just like summarize what I received from the book, is when we experience grief, it's almost like our soul's recognition that this isn't the way that life is supposed to be. That part of the reason why we are grieving is because we live in a fallen world where there is sin, where there is disease, where there is sickness, where there is death. And this isn't the life that God wanted for us. And grief is our soul recognizing that this isn't the way life is supposed to be. Once again, that's me summarizing. She does a much more eloquent job of unpacking it in her box. But that has really comforted me in ways that I didn't anticipate, because I have been wrestling with this idea of like, this isn't the way I want things to be. This isn't the way that things should be. And yet this is the way things are. And knowing that this isn't what God envisioned for our lives, a life of pain, a life of brokenness, a life of disease, just all of the things that we end up grieving as we walk this thing out called life. It makes me feel more comforted. One of the things that I knew I wanted to have when I was staying in the hospital was a nice, warm, and cozy blanket. That's exactly why this Lola blanket is really standing out in my mind. There's something about feeling just the comfort of a big, cozy blanket, honestly, when you're going through a hard season or you've had a long day, that makes you feel nice and cozy inside. If I can tell you what first caught my attention about the Lola blanket, it really wasn't even the blanket, though it is cozy. It's the story behind it. Lola blanket was founded by two brothers after watching their mother find comfort in her favorite blanket while she was battling breast cancer. I think that's probably why it stood out to me that when I was going through my surgery, I wanted a warm, cozy blanket. There's just something about feeling fragile and vulnerable that having a nice, warm, cozy blanket makes you feel better. I don't know about you, but I really think there's something so powerful about creating a product that's rooted in love, comfort, significance, and caring for people during difficult seasons. Once I learned the story, I had to try it for myself. And now I understand why Lola is called the #1 blanket. This blanket has been incredibly helpful for me while I recover in this season. So if you know someone who's going through a hard time and you're wondering what's something that I can get them that'll be nice, something that'll comfort them in this season, I highly suggest you get the Lola blanket. The first thing you're going to notice is how unbelievably soft it is. It's become one of my favorite things because it's something that people can actually use every single day. And I feel like the card that you can write when you're giving this blanket, like you're always covered, may you feel loved, may you feel warmth, even though you're going through this hard time. I just feel like the possibilities are endless when you give someone a blanket as incredible soft, and comfy as this one is. For a limited time, our listeners can get 40% off select Lola Blanket products with code EVOLVE at checkout. Just head to lolablankets.com and use code EVOLVE to get 40% off your order. Again, that's lolablankets.com and use code EVOLVE for 40% off select products. Please support our show and let them know we sent you. Wrap yourself in luxury, honey, with Lola Blankets. Have you ever woken up feeling sweaty, freezing, or just uncomfortable? The temperature in your bedroom can make or break your sleep. That's why I switched to Miracle Made sheets. They're inspired by NASA technology and use silver-infused temperature-regulating fabric to help you sleep perfectly all night long. Okay, now let me ask you a question. Have you ever climbed into bed completely exhausted, only to spend the night tossing, turning, kicking the covers off, pulling them back on, and wondering why you can't get comfortable? Getting good rest is hard enough without your bedding working against you. That is why I love Miracle Made sheets. What makes them different is that they're made with silver infused fabric that's actually designed to help regulate your temperature while you sleep. And here's something I didn't know until recently. Your sheets collect a lot more bacteria than you probably realize. Miracle Made uses antibacterial silver technology that helps them stay cleaner and fresher up to 3 times longer than traditional sheets. If you've been trying to be more intentional about your self-care, your rest, and even your skincare, this is a simple upgrade that can make a real difference. Cleaner sheets can mean less bacteria sitting on your skin after night. Rest is too important to settle for less. Upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/evolve to try Miracle Made sheets today. You'll save over 40%, and when you use promo code EVOLVE, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. Try miracle.com/evolve, code EVOLVE at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. So that has been good to me, and that is my business. I guess I could mind yours and see what's happening in your world. But honestly, this lump in my throat is probably going to keep me from doing a whole lot of, until like maybe next week, maybe that thing will be gone and it'll be getting better and better each day. But I wanted to at least give you all an update, let you hear from me. And also, let me tell you, part of the reason why I know like God is helping me to strategize in the dark is like, I started off this year and I was really talking to the team. I'm like, one, the way of the podcast world has changed. I started podcasting in 2018, and so much of it has changed. And in that change, we were doing it virtual. I was doing it on Facebook Live. We went through a pandemic, and I'm like, if we can find a way to like batch record as many episodes as possible, take 2 or 3 days and knock out a bunch of episodes, it'll help us set things up for the year. Honestly, our goal was to set things up for the year. And even though we fell a little bit short of that goal, it did set us up for a few weeks so that our team was still able to collaborate to share the stories and messages of women who have had to go rogue, who are learning what it means for them to go rogue in new seasons of their life. And so I'm really excited to have Jekalyn Carr on this week's episode. We had an incredible conversation. Everything you've been seeing podcast-wise was pre-recorded before the accident. And so we had I'd never had an opportunity to meet her. Obviously, I'm familiar with her work. If you don't, she's an incredible, let me not limit. She's an incredible vessel of God's grace and anointing. While some of you may know her for her singing, the singing is just part of the tree that Jekalyn Carr represents, part of the vine that she is in the body of Christ. And we sit down to talk about her journey through ministry, her journey in the different expressions of ministry and what it has cost her as she has tapped into those different forms of ministry. She was incredibly kind, and I just believe that there's so many messages to glean from her as we talk about what it means to stay rogue when you could be pulled away, to stay rogue, I want to say this properly, because for some people, staying rogue is doing something different. It's breaking your own rules. And for other people, staying rogue is staying steady when change is available to you, staying rooted when you could be easily uprooted or easily changed. And she has found a way to discover her authenticity while also maintaining consistency. And I think that if you're in a season like that where you feel like, oh, I'm being called to something that is requiring a steadiness from me, and that steadiness can sometimes feel challenging, that steadiness can sometimes make me want to pull away, I believe that this message of endurance that we're going to receive from Jekalyn Carr is going to be a blessing to you. I'm so thankful for you, for your prayers, for your continued support for me throughout this season. I ask that you continue to lift me up as I go through this recovery process. As much as I can do this, I'm going to try to, but you may hear from other voices from the Woman Evolve team and family as, I put myself first, I guess, and honor this vessel, this body that God has given me. Okay, I love you. Let's get into this week's conversation. So I heard that both of our lives changed at the age of 13, but for different reasons. I am wondering, tell me about your life at age 13. What happened that was so pivotal for you?
So at the age of 13, that's when I accepted my calling of preaching. I had been singing since I was 5 years old. Would travel in my little region. And we actually thought that it was going to be the singing that God would use first. But I was sitting in service. Actually, before then, God had been pulling on me. But I was sitting in a service, and these praise dancers came up, and they were dancing to Shekinah Glory, Yes. And it was awesome, beautiful. But then another praise dance team came up and danced to the same song. And you would think, I would change a little bit because somebody came before me and did that. But that was God in that moment letting me know that it is time. And the moment I accepted my calling of preaching, my world changed completely. God took me across the world. I traveled for 2 years before I released my first breakout single, Greater Is Coming, just preaching. Ever since then, I had never had a void schedule at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
13 years old, you step into ministry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
At 13 years old, you're still learning so much about yourself and the world. What is it that you knew about God at 13 that you felt like, this is what I feel like God is calling me to share with the world?
Well, I grew up in church, right? I grew up with a family that is not just, church. They really taught us about God and having a relationship with him. And so on top of that, I knew from a very young age what I felt I was called to do. I didn't know it was going to be preaching yet, but I knew that it was something in ministry. And then, of course, coming from a line of ministers and all of that. And it just kind of like the dots were connected. And it was an easy transition for me because I had been doing it. And even when I was singing, it was as if I was preaching. Yeah. I just hadn't full on accepted my calling yet. But God just connected the dots. And it was a beautiful transition.
You know what I love about what you said is that you didn't just grow up in church. You were taught about God. There's a difference.
It's a difference. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who grew up in church but weren't being taught at home about their relationship with God and being discipled at home. But it sounds like you had that experience.
Yeah, we would literally have our power. So every day my family would come together and my mom and my dad, they would teach us.
Wow.
They would teach us for a whole hour, making sure that, this was really embedded in us because, as kids, you go to church, you have a good time and all that. But, by the time you leave or Monday comes, as kids, you're gonna forget.
Right.
But I don't think that just goes for children. I think people in general,
right.
It's an everyday thing. And that's what they was trying to get us to do, to exercise our relationship with God daily and not just on a Wednesday or a Sunday.
Oh, that's so good. Making a practice out of that. So someone would say, okay, so you've been in relationship with the Lord since you were young. You stepped into ministry at 13. You've never had moments where you questioned your faith and you've never had moments where you've had to question trusting God. So we want to know, what is it like to be positioned in such a way that you never had any questions?
First of all, my entire journey has been a faith journey, especially being that I started out very young. And I would even remember hearing my dad, express how some people didn't want to, sign or deal with someone that was that young and a female and all of that. And so we had to walk by faith and see what God wanted for me and my life and my journey. God fixed it. Even when we wanted to, God fixed it to where we could not connect with anything. It was literally like, you're going to trust me through this, because I think also some people have to understand that you may not have what the next person have, but as long as you have a word and God has spoken over your life, God is going to make sure you get to where you need to be. And so there were times where when you're walking by faith, we would be like, okay, God, you sure? You sure? Do this, do that. And it didn't make sense, but we got to a place to where we didn't try to make it make sense. We just had to know that we got enough history with God that he has never failed us. So anything now that he tells us to do, even when it doesn't make sense, it's like, okay, I trust you. You told me to do this last time and it worked, but it sometimes you have those intense moments, especially depending upon what he requires, how much of it and all of that. But I trust him.
Are you in this season where you feel like you're having to trust God again in an area that maybe you thought you'd mastered trusting God?
I think that's every season of my life. You never get to a place to where, or in faith rather, where it's like, I made it. You're going to always go from faith to faith. You're going to always keep climaxing if you want to. And I learned that because I understood how big God is. And when you understand how big he is, you know that you can never meet a finish line. It's always some area that, you're trusting God and you're believing him. And if I could be honest, that's in pretty much every area of my life, personal, business, ministry, all of the things, because he orchestrated my destiny anyway. So, why not invite him into that?
I feel like, we talk about his mercies being new every day, which means that we have a need for a new mercy every day. But the problem is we have a new need for a new mercy and the mercy is new. So I'm looking for yesterday's mercy in this new situation. He's like, no, this mercy is going to be different than last time. So it creates this humility. And I have had to struggle with this idea. I'm such a planner. I like to know what the goals are, how to achieve them. And in my relationship with God, it forces me into a space of humility because I have to be dependent on his voice. There's a humility you have to have. You never get to this place of mastery.
And I think that's a great place to be in, being a planner and all. Faith without works is dead. So we want to, kind of have a little plan and vision and all of that. I think the biggest thing is yielding it to him. God, here's what I've written. Here's what I want. Now you take the lead. Tell me what is for me, because sometimes what we wrote is too small. Sometimes God wants to do bigger. And so that's why it's important to just yield it to him so that he can take it even higher.
Our theme for Woman Evolve this year is going rogue. And so I want to know, this is a very interesting question, but I feel like you're going to be able to nail it. What's something God asked you to do that didn't feel spiritual at all, but changed your life?
I would say, if I'm going to be very honest,
please,
really praying for myself like I go to war for everybody else.
Shut your mouth.
So many times, because you hold a certain position, you're on the battlefield for everybody else, to where it's like, okay, God will take care of me. He got me covered, whatever. But you have to understand, it is okay for you to take a moment, and the altar that you've created for everybody else, you get on that same altar and you pray for your destiny. You push yourself through, you know, all these things, because God hears you. God honors your heart, and understanding that he's not going to let you push everybody everybody else and then make you feel like you have to dummy down when it comes to yourself. No, you have needs. You need him too. You know, you need mercy too. And so being able to get to that place where I'm like, okay, it's okay to push for Jekalyn. It was an interesting place to be in, but I love it here now.
That's so good because I think especially as women, sometimes we can find ourselves taking care of so many other people, even as it relates to our spiritual prayer life, that we feel like we can't bring ourselves to the altar, that we can't pray for ourselves. And I'm wondering now, like, how many strong friends are actually praying for themselves and not for the other people in their lives?
It's when you really think about it, it's a certain level of neglect, really.
It is.
It's like you have to also, like, you put yourself first and everything else. Put yourself first when it comes to stuff like this. Sometimes God don't. We also take on prayer requests and tasks that we just want to, but we have to understand that sometimes God wants you to just go to war, travail for yourself.
Maybe that will help people who struggle with putting themselves first. Like maybe you can't do it in your life because people have gotten accustomed to a certain version of you. You don't know how to put yourself first in your family and your friends at work. If you could start at least in your prayer life, it may give you the strength you need for it to show up everywhere else in your life. Maybe we're trying to reverse the order and trying to put ourselves first.
And it doesn't make you selfish.
Yeah.
It makes you, it's the mindset of, if I don't have what I need for me, it's hard for me to pour into somebody else.
Yeah.
So you have to refill yourself and know when those times are imperative.
I feel like that's going to help so many people figure out how to navigate uncertainty in the season that we're in. It's like, maybe I'm not praying for my situation to change, but for you to give me power in the face of this situation. I love that. Okay, so I want to understand, if you had to unpack what it has meant for you as a woman to evolve, what would you say you've had to evolve from, and where have you landed in that process?
I had to evolve from, I would probably say, not accepting Jekalyn in its entirety. You know how, like, when you're in certain spaces, you feel like you have to kind of like dummy down, but when you know the weight of what you carry and the capacity, and it's not arrogance, it's not pride, it's just that you know when you're in those places where it's not fully accepted. But I had to learn how to be confident, you know, in who I am. And now, baby, I love every part of me. I love my voice. I love what God has given me. I love who he has called me to, what he's called me to do. I love being in my lane.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be hard when you got so many things that is happening around you, and there are people like, you should do this or you should do that. No, Jekalyn gonna do what Jekalyn is called to do. And we're gonna be confident in that. And because we've been consistent in that, that's one of the reasons I believe God has been blessing the way he has, because we've been trusting him with what he's given me.
I feel like you are talking about taking up space, like being okay with taking up space, which a lot of times we struggle with, especially if we feel like, oh, well, my gift may not be perfect or there's someone else doing what I'm doing. So I've got to like shrink down before I come into this space. But it sounds like you're like, listen, this is who I am. And this is what I have.
Absolutely. And then for those who feel like, you know, there's 50 million people doing the same thing. Okay. And there'll be 50 million more. But you got to know what your assignment is, what you're called to, who you're called to. And God is we're not the same. You know, God would never make us the same. Some of us may have similar assignments, but that's why it's important that you focus on what you're supposed to do. Be confident in that. Love yourself to the fullest, and know that God is going to bless that. Don't look at the next person and think, you know, it's the same thing. No, God is going to bless your obedience and your confidence at the same time.
Now listen, if you have been rocking with the Woman Evolve podcast for a while, then you already heard me talk about Honey Love before. Let me tell you one thing about it, and two things for sure, is that for me, putting on a bra in this recovery mission, it needs to be something that's going to be comfortable, something that does not dig into my ribs or make me feel discomfort. And that's exactly what Honey Love does. And honestly, the fact that we're still talking about them should tell you something about how incredible these bras are, because y'all know me, I am not holding on to anything that does not work. What I appreciate most about Honey Love is that they understand women. This isn't one of those brands that was designed by people guessing what women want, Honey Love is female founded, and every product is designed by women who actually wear them, and you can feel the difference. I remember thinking, okay, there's no way a wireless bra is going to give me the support I need. And baby, I was wrong. Honey Love bras somehow managed to be supportive, comfortable, and lightweight all at the same time. No wires digging into your ribs, no constantly adjusting throughout the day, no counting down the minutes until you can take it off when you get home. And can we talk about this shapewear for a second? Because if you've ever worn shapewear that immediately rolled down the moment you sat down, walked across the room, or stepped onto a dance floor, then you already know the struggle. Honey Love shapewear is designed to move with your body, not fight against it. It enhances your shape without making you feel squeezed into submission. And yes, the bathroom situation has been considered. Praise God, there's no gymnastics required to use the potty. I've also been hearing so much about their new crossover contour bra and their Cloud Embrace bra. Women are loving the comfort, support, and shape without having to deal with the underwire. Treat yourself to the most advanced bras and shapewear on the market. Use our exclusive link to save 20% off Honey Love at honeylove.com/woman. That's honeylove.com/woman. After you check out, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Experience the new standard in comfort and support with Honey Love. How have you managed to protect your anointing while also experiencing success?
Girl, I don't be paying attention to a whole lot of stuff that is happening. I try not to, even when it comes to social media, all these things, I really do. I try to kind of shut myself off to a certain degree. Now, I love TikTok.
Yeah. I
love
fun.
it. I love to get a good laugh. It's just one of those platforms that gives you a good laugh. But, when it comes to everything else, I just try to, there's a thin line, and I try to make sure that I don't become overly invested into it. And that's the reason why, you have certain people in place that God bless you with, so that you can stay focused on what you're supposed to, and you can stay balanced and not worry about a whole lot of stuff. I just try to shield myself from that. Yeah.
Okay, so you said you like TikTok. So that's making me wonder, who are you, when you're not ministering, when you're not singing, who are you? You're just a random day. Tell me what's a random day in your life.
So, I have my radio show, so I do that. But outside of that, I'm a country girl. So I love ATV riding. I love horseback riding. I'm a big family person. My family will plan something spare of the moment, a little barbecue, a little fish fry. I really enjoy those things. I don't care where God takes me to, and He's done so many great things, but those things mean a lot to me. Family and I love, relaxation. I've become a homebody by default, because when you're moving around so much, you love your house a little bit more.
For sure.
And massages, those things that helps you to stay balanced.
Okay, so you mentioned your family, and one of the things I read is that your family sacrificed a lot, especially for you to be at a young age, which I feel like isn't, when I was growing up, the parents weren't doing a whole lot of sacrificing for the sake of the kids. The kids could sacrifice for the parents. But it sounds like from what I read that your family sacrificed a lot to really create a space for you to walk in your calling and anointing, even though you were young. Is that true?
Oh, yes, in many different ways. From a little girl, all I've seen was my parents, my dad, he would invest into my gift. I did a whole lot of things, actually. I modeled, in addition to the singing, but that I would literally see him sometimes take his paycheck, and he would choose between a bill or an album, a little album that I would do. And he would invest into the album or a photo shoot or whatever the case may be, anything that had to do with my purpose. There were times where, he would drive and we would go places and I had nowhere to sing, but he'd be like, we coming through. And they'd be like, y'all coming through? Well, come on through and sing, but just to see him, putting that time in and investing it, it's bigger than you just having this title of being a parent.
Yeah.
You know, some people got to understand what comes with that. When you have, especially when you have children who have callings upon their lives, sometimes it takes a little bit more time, investment, not just financially, but, you know, even spiritually, they invested into us. Like I said, imparting wisdom and all these things to help me become a well-rounded person and to grow into who I am today.
I feel like if you have parents who invest in you on that level, there are a lot of insecurities and traps that you end up avoiding. Who do you think you would have been if you had like all of this fame and success but didn't have those deposits?
I definitely wouldn't have been ready.
Yeah.
Because one thing that they always taught us is that it's bigger than you just being gifted. Gift comes without repentance. It's bigger than you just being on stage. We need to be able to like you when you're not on stage.
That part.
We need to be able to deal with you and, you know, be able to navigate. People want to actually, you being a lovable person and a well-grounded and well-rounded person at the same time. And so, I definitely would not have been who I am, not just in my gift, but as a person without those deposits.
How do you balance, like, okay, so your parents made a lot of sacrifices for you, and I know that you obviously have honored that in the way that you not just show up, but show up with them and within your family unit, while also like creating space for your own individuality?
You know, that's a good question. It's a great balance, actually. You know, of course, I started when I was a little girl. Now, you know, being an adult, I think we have learned how to grow with the times. Even though we're family business, we still take those times to, you know, balance, and we keep that individuality when it comes to each other because everybody has grown. Not even just myself, but my dad is not in the same place he was in when we started. My mom is not, you know what I mean? So being able to understand growth within each other and growing with each other.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's a problem when people are like, oh, families can't work together. No. It is very possible. You have to, there's things that you got to do, you know, in order for it to work. And one of those biggest things is you got to know when a shift is happening. You got to know, be able to feel each other, know when something is not right, know when they're not okay, know when, you know what I'm saying? Know when to pause. You know, I would see my dad, and he'd be like, all right, let's pause. Let's go on vacation. Let's go do this. You know what I mean? And I still practice that even now in my adulthood, and us keeping those, you know, those boundaries and those lines and all those things. And it helps us continue to work together as well.
That's so good, because to your point, having those boundaries, but also because I think sometimes we can be so heavy on having boundaries with family that we don't figure out how do we also let the relationship and love evolve with those boundaries as well. And then so we end up just like swinging the pendulum in the other direction, but there's a balance to be had.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, I think the only time you'll run into a problem with that is when you don't keep family in the forefront.
Yeah.
I would always hear my parents say, I do this for you. My dad, I'm your manager, I'm this, but I'm still your father. So we never allowed what we do professionally and the gift and everything God has given us to come in between the fact that we're blood, you know what I mean? And caring for one another and making sure that, again, we're good.
So when we talk about going rogue, it's us looking at our lives and things that we have accepted as our norm that maybe God wants to stretch us or we're going to have to revolt against in order for us to really step into what God has for us. Can you tell me about a time you've had to go rogue?
I think for me also, I wouldn't even necessarily say ministry, but I would say for me it's more so business, in the business arena, because so many times we were taught, you know, to just be one dimensional. And God was like, no, I put this there. I gave you this gift of business. I gave you this and that and the third. So that being said, we have to be okay that even if, it doesn't look like people would normally see, or, you know, it doesn't sound like something that is normal. You got to know that it's okay to do it. I've learned to go for it. And even if I feel like I'm going against the grain, I know I'm going with God.
Yeah.
He sent me. So that gives me my peace. Yeah.
So when you talk about business, I want to lean into that a little bit, because you're also in ministry. And I want to talk about that line from being gifted, being talented, but also recognizing that the platforming of the gift, the distribution of the gift, and the anointing so that it can reach as many people as possible also has this element of business connected to it. And who did you have to become as a businesswoman? Like, what was that part in your life where you're like, okay, I'm going to have to really not just be gifted, but I'm going to have to pay attention to these contracts and I'm going to pay attention to these vendors if I'm going to make sure that I'm protecting the thing that God's given me.
Yeah. I have my dad to thank for that.
Okay.
My dad, he worked when he worked in corporate America. He did a lot of management work for the jobs that he was on. And one of the biggest things he told me is that you're not just going to be gifted. Yeah. You're going to know the business as well. And he would sit me down. He would sit my sister down because she helps with the administration and all that. And he would teach us and he would show us, different things or whatever. And also being okay with that because, sometimes they tell you, no, it's not a business. Business has a lot to do with it, especially when you're running corporations. You're not just the preaching part is the easy part. It's the part behind the scenes. And the biggest thing for me was being okay with it and allowing it to happen because, you got to make sure that business is right. Because and I would say, even from the music standpoint, because, it's a lot of people who ended up in situations that they didn't want to be in, but it's due to, not knowing the business or not having the proper people to read contracts and all of that. We don't just be signing stuff.
Yeah.
We gotta read it. You gotta take your time to make sure that this is where you want to be. This is what you want to do, and be okay with that too.
Okay, so I want us to marinate on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we do have a lot of people who feel like, I have a gift. But that gift, to your father's point, there are other elements that are required in order to properly make sure that gift can be supported and sustained. I am curious for someone who feels like I'm just gifted, but I don't know what it's going to take in order for me to make sure it reaches these places. Like, what are some tips or tools you would give them on learning the business side of things? What are some things that you would give them as advice to work on?
Two things I would say is very important that you do your research. We have a lot of outlets now, whether it's online or whatever, that can help teach you and make you more knowledgeable about the area that you want to pursue. And then also the biggest thing that I like to do is pray for destiny helpers too, that God would send the right people to, connect you with, because it works. Every season of my life, he always sent the right people to ensure that everything is moving the way that it's supposed to be moving. So you got to have the right people, because you're going to get to a place to where it has to be more than just yourself, especially when you're running a business. And so you got to have that prayer in the forefront. Who do I need in this season of my life, for this vision that you've given me? Because I don't believe he would just give you the vision and don't give you who or what you need to make sure the vision becomes what it needs to be.
Oh, that's so good. I've had so many, when I first started my businesses, I had all my kids working for me because I just had a hard time trusting people.
Yeah.
And then there came this season where I'm like, okay, the kids don't know what they're doing and neither do I. You know what I mean? And they need to finish their homework. So I'm going to have to hire some real people. Having to trust the people that God sends. Like, you can say the prayer.
Yes.
But then when the person shows up,
exactly,
having to trust them. Yeah. I feel like not just with your business, but with your inadequacies, right? Like letting someone on the inside to see things that aren't together.
Exactly.
Can we talk about like the vulnerability connected with making
that's very good, because this is your livelihood. This is your life. This is your personal life. You're going to more than likely be in my personal space.
Yeah.
It's a lot that comes with that. And you obviously won't be able to trust people right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I do know that if it's someone that God has sent, he has already made it good, but that don't mean you turn your common sense off or your radar. No, you got to still stay on top of it, and making sure that you're watch as well as pray, to make sure that, everything is what it needs to be. In the beginning, you may have to micromanage. I have this thing where I may micromanage, but I'm not going to babysit.
Yeah.
So you may have to have your eye a little bit more intense when you're looking at things to make sure that everything is running the way it's supposed to be running. But you got to know that if it's someone God has sent to you, eventually He's going to give you that peace.
Yeah.
I always pray, don't just send me the people, give me the peace. To, especially when, because you guys, a lot of people who have been done wrong, a lot of people who've been taken advantage of, and all of that when it comes to their businesses and stuff. And people make it hard for you to trust them. But I pray for that peace to be able to accept them and the wisdom to navigate the relationship as well.
Do you pray a similar prayer when it comes to like your personal relationships and friendships? A lot of women are wondering like, how do I make friends at my age, or how do I learn? I'm out here dating and trying to figure things out. Like, how do you navigate letting people into your life outside of business?
Oh yeah, same prayer. Here's the thing. I don't try to make friends. I allow God to send who I need at different moments. I don't be like, let me go look for it. You know what I mean? Because I think that's when sometimes we kind of go wrong. I just let be what's supposed to be. And as far as dating, my prayer now, if he ain't it, I don't want to be down the line. 3 months, 4 months. No, it ain't it.
Tell
Cut it
me
off
now. Tell me now.
Now, show me a sign, because he knows what it takes to get my attention. He knows what to say. I need to know, because especially when you get to a place where you just don't have time to invest your good heart, you're a good person, and just time and energy, period, into relationships that are not supposed to be in this season of your life.
Yeah. No, okay. So, we get a lot of dating questions, and,
Yes.
I'm out of the game, love my husband, but I don't know what to tell the girls these days.
Yeah.
They say it's hard out here.
It can be, but you know what?
Tell me.
After you
Suffered
have
for a while.
Hello, the God of all grace. And that's so true. That's one of the scriptures that I apply to my life every year. I have a line of scriptures, but that's something that's on there. When you have had relationships, because it's okay to date.
Yeah.
Date, okay?
Wait, hold on now. Tell the people again, because I got a friend right now, and I'm trying to get her to at least date, to at least see what's. She's like, if it's not my husband, I don't want him. I'm like, how are we going to know if he's your husband if you don't go out and date a little?
See, the thing is, you got to understand that you have to be open to it, because if something is closed, can't none come in.
Jekalyn, let me tell you something. Because the girlies I be with who say they want to be in a relationship, they don't be open, and you can tell.
Yeah. The problem is when they do, because they're going to come. The problem is when you try to put so much of yourself in it and not allow God to navigate you through it. What I realize is I always keep in the forefront of my mind, He wrote my destiny. And so even though I'm open to dating, I still want to make sure, like I said, I'm not half of my year gone and I've been dealing with you and you a counterfeit.
Yeah.
No. So I always pray in the beginning, okay, God, I'm going on this date. But if this is not it, I give you full access to cut it off without backlash, and make to open the door for what is for me. So yeah, it's okay to date. Get dressed up. Go. Now I'm not the type of dater that like date multiple people at once. I don't like that. I gotta learn everybody's favorite color.
Right.
I gotta like this. Nah, I'm the type of person. I got one person. I got to focus on one. But if that's what you want to do that. But just, again, make sure that you're allowing God in this space, because it's bigger. You want to also be intentional. It's bigger than you just being with the person. Do I have the capacity for this person? Does this person have the capacity for me? Not just for now, but for who I will become, who he will become, because there's purpose attached to anything God puts together.
Yeah.
He don't just be out here and be like, they they cute. They'll be cute together. No, there's purpose attached to it. There's destiny attached to it. And if I ain't got what it takes for you and you don't have what it takes for me, ain't no sense of us continuing this thing.
Jekalyn, I don't know you very well. This is our first time meeting, right? I just sense in my spirit that you could read somebody down if you had to.
Hello. If I had to.
I just sense in my spirit that you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want it to go there. But if you had to, because the way that you was laying out them rules and regulations for the dating.
Yes, because the thing is, when you've dealt with counterfeits, you've dealt with these bad relationships and all of that, and they could not be bad people, because I've never dated a bad person, just wasn't the person for me. But you get to a place where, and this comes with evolving, you get to a place where it's like, okay, I have no more time to just be out here wasting. And, I would look and I would see that a whole year had passed by and I'm dealing with a counterfeit. And this is not what God wants from me. So how do I change this? And you become more firm with what you want and where you want to go in life, being more intentional, especially when you get to a certain age. Now, I may not be old, but you get to a certain place in life. It's like, why do you want to waste time?
Yeah.
Why do you want to continue going in negative cycles? Do the work, do the inner work to make sure that the cycle is broken and you move forward in life. You get married.
You know how the work, it sounds like you did the work, because you said, I've never dated a bad person. We just had bad situations or weren't right for each other.
Right. Weren't right for each other. And of course they were learning experiences.
Did you know in the did that come with healing? Like saying they weren't bad people? Because a lot of times we get out of breakups and the only way we can survive them is by villainizing the other person.
See, I ain't that type of person.
Okay.
Like, I'm very big on accountability. I'm very big on taking responsibility for your actions. And that's with anybody. And I'm the same way when it comes to relationships. And it wasn't anything that I had to learn. I just literally thought about it one day. I'm like, I never really dated a bad person. This is also an indication that sometimes your pick is not bad. It's just they're not for you. And I also got to a place to where I don't just want my pick. I want what God has chosen for Jekalyn, because there's some things he can permit. I believe that if I had continued with anyone of my past, it would have been good, but I also would have suffered because that wasn't his plan for me. So that being said, I had to learn how to be like, okay, God, what's your choice? What do you want? If it's not your choice, then I don't even let my spirit settle here.
Yeah.
I don't care if you gotta cause me to toss and turn at night. Disconnect me from it so I can be where you want me to be. Because I have to keep in mind, he wants to give me his best.
Yeah.
And anything outside of that is just something that I'm just doing on my own and I'm settling.
Can you tell me about a moment where you had to maybe grieve that God's pick and your pick weren't the same pick?
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm only asking that because sometimes I can say in my own experiences, whether it may have not been a relationship, but something that I wanted for my life was obviously something that God didn't have for me.
Yeah.
And like this anger, frustration, that what God wanted and I wanted weren't the same things. Like I feel like before we can really lean into, okay, I'm going to trust you again, God, that there's almost a part of our heart that has to acknowledge that, like, man, I'm really upset that what I wanted and what you wanted weren't the same things. And I don't want people to get stuck in that.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think for me, there's a couple of times that happened. More than anger, I was just broken.
Yeah.
Because you know, women, when we see things, we're like, okay, we can do this together, we can do that together, and you have all these plans and all these visions, and then God is like, nope, I got something bigger, I have something greater, and it's like I had already connected my spirit to that, my heart, my mind to that, and it breaks you when, God is like, this is not it for you. But I think you got to know you can bounce back from that. You got to always say, I don't want nothing that God is not trying to give me.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want me to have it, it's for a great reason. And we know he said, ask and it shall be given unto you. He doesn't have a problem with giving to us, but it's just certain things that God just doesn't want to be handled lightly in our lives. And I think right now during this time is definitely that particular area for a lot of people. You know, you got to understand that, yes, it broke you. Yes, you had these feelings and all these things, but know that God has something so much greater. Because I'm learning that sometimes what I dreamt, what I felt, what I connected to was too small. And it doesn't necessarily mean physically. Sometimes it could be with what you carry.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to the capacity. God sees in the future. He knows what and who I will become, what or who he will become. So if it doesn't match and that support, that push won't be there, he's going to cut it off. I give him permission to cut it off.
Yeah.
But you got to know you can bounce back. And I pray for healing too. I pray for wholeness, especially for people who's been in a relationship for years with the same person. You know, it can be interesting, but God is still a healer. And also know that your healing is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to, it's a daily thing. Let God continue to work in you so you can be free.
We were just talking earlier about just the way that Jesus performed different miracles throughout the Bible, and some of them were instantaneous and some of them required a little bit more work. It didn't happen on the spot for certain people. So letting the Lord take his time with you as you're healing, because sometimes we want to just walk out of it and be like, I don't look like what I've been through.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes you're going to look like what you've been through. And that's okay until you get to the place where you look like, a conqueror.
Yeah.
You're 28, right?
Yes.
28? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're 28?
I don't.
How old do you feel?
According to my granny, I do feel like I'm in my late 40s spirit-wise, but I'm obviously very young and very vibrant and all the things. And so,
No, I wonder because you have accomplished so much, but then also you've been exposed to so much and you carry so much.
Yeah.
At your age, how do you feel like, you know, the next 30, 40, 50, 60, you know what I mean? Like, how do you feel like you want to show up in these next decades of your life armed with as much wisdom and experience as you have?
Yeah. I don't know, even though I don't know what it looks like, I do know that I want to just continue to thrive in who I was created to be, never get comfortable, never become content, you know. I want to always just climax in destiny, in my gifts and all of that, evolve as an individual, inside out, growing as a friend, as a daughter, as all these things, living a well-rounded life. And that's my goal.
Do you have like any fears or insecurities as you look out into the future?
Not really. Because I have accomplished a lot and I know God is not done, there's still that thought of, God, you've already done this. You came out the gate swinging. What could be next? What's next? And honestly, every time I ask that, he always shows me, I'm too big for you to figure out, boo. Yeah. There's so much I have in store for you. So
I feel like that's I've had an accelerated life too. And I think that that's one of the things I'm like, Lord, I didn't see so much. And then I'd be like, don't take me out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because once you've experienced so much, it's like what's left. But I do feel like we're in a changing of the times. Even as we see like technology change and people's habits and patterns change. And I feel like to be alive at this time and in this era is a promise that God is going to allow you to see the innovation and cutting edge next that isn't going to look like anything we've seen before.
Exactly. And we also have to know what that looks like in different seasons of our lives. Because sometimes we think that because we were prospering in this area for so many times, that's the way, that's the area that is supposed to be, for the rest of our lives. No, that's God is still going to have that under control, but it's also like it's different areas, especially when there's so many gifts in you. It's different areas that he wants to prosper you in. And you have to not be focused on, well, this is not working how it used to be. That's because you're floating. Yeah. You're supposed, once once you get it to a certain place, it's supposed to work itself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so now it's like, okay, I'm open to what other area. It could be in a book. It could be, conference. Whatever it is, just learning to be open to that and not being stuck on just one area.
Oh, I feel like that embodies what it means to go rogue. It's like us really being open to however God wants to use us, even if it's different than something that we've experienced in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, I want to play a game with you.
Okay.
This game we're calling The Thread Says, and we're going to read some of your threads and talk about them.
Okay.
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 You said sometimes what feels like isolation is actually a strategic season preparing you for higher levels. What season were you in when you wrote that?
I would say before this year came in, because I'm always in preparation for what God wants to do next. And I find that a lot of times he has me in a place where it's quiet. I can literally feel when it's time for a sabbatical, and I'll be like, yep, can't talk to that person. I literally shut down because I have to hear him. I have to hear what's next, or at least what he wants me to do now for what's next, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you said you never realize how long a minute is until you're exercising.
Baby, let me tell you something.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Listen, I have become a gym girly, and I've realized a minute, if they be like, you got a minute to give people an encouragement word. Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
You got a minute on stage.
Okay.
To speak. Mm-hmm. Good. In that gym,
tell me about it.
When you on that treadmill,
now
I don't even mess with that Stairmaster. Y'all can add that one. Or when your trainer be like, you got a minute to go. I'm like, I know you lying. But yeah, it's way different. I realized that in the gym, honey.
It's
longer. I
have not seen the gym in some time, so I can't even add no contribution to that. Okay, the girls want to know, are you a morning person or do people need to give you space?
I'm not a morning person, but I'm also not a person where you have to give me space.
Okay.
Like I'm a kind person that be up in the mornings.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Are you cooking or are you ordering every time?
If it's at my house, I want some cooked. I want to cook, or some. If it's not like something that's real quick, spare in the moment, let's cook, because I eat out all the time. You're on the road and all that, so let's get some good Southern food.
Are you an overthinker?
At times.
At times, about certain things.
About certain things. Sometimes maybe you're working on something. It's like, but you're putting more thought into it. What you're really you're stressing it a little bit. But I think, it really depends on what it is, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, that's hard. I'm gonna say it'll either be salmon or hot wings.
Salmon. So what you putting on it?
Well, you can dress it up in different ways. Some days you can have, I'm not really a big sauce person. I don't like a whole lot going on with my food.
Okay, all right, okay.
But it really depends. You can grill it, all those things. Really,
one meal for the rest of your life.
Pretty much, yeah.
Salmon.
Yeah, or anything seafood. Anything seafood.
Okay. Yeah. What is a red flag you ignore too often?
Sometimes when people show you who they are,
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially when you're a kind person, it's like you try to give people the benefit of the doubt, or you try to give them a chance. Be like, maybe they didn't mean it that way. Let's try to. But now, 2 times.
Do you block people? Like, are you heavy on the block button?
I don't block people often. I think that takes a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. Social media, maybe.
Yeah.
But like personal life, not really.
I meant on social.
Social?
Mm-hmm. Because some people are very strict.
Yeah,
they'll block you in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm becoming one of those people.
I love it too. I love it. Some people they make that list.
They do make that list. But you know what? They campaign to be on there.
Exactly.
I don't just put you over there.
Exactly.
You sound like you want to be over there.
I don't understand why people don't really grasp the fact that if you don't like something, you can easily
It's just as why, but I do it all the time. That's how I know you can do it.
Exactly. Exactly. So block. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be the hard one.
Okay.
And we're airing it no matter what you say.
Okay.
Okay? I need you to build your Mount Rushmore of singers.
Singers. Ooh-wee. Okay. Goodness. I love the legends. So let's do some legends. Writers and singers. Donna Lawrence.
Okay.
Shirley Caesar.
Yeah.
We already know. CeCe Winans. Dorinda Clark Cole.
Period.
Karen Clark Sheard. All the Clarks. All the Winans, really. Kurt Carr. It's so many. It's so many for me. CeCe, I said the Winans.
The Rushmore you can't have but like 4 or 5 of them. And you said all the Clarks, and that's the whole mountain on the Clarks,
you right about that one. You right about that. It's so many. And even the younger legends, you got Jason Nelson, Brian Courtney Wilson, Kiara Shear, Tasha. I mean, it's so many. I don't know. I love my people.
I see what you did though.
Yeah.
I see what you did.
Yeah, I did. I gave you 2.
And you didn't limit yourself. You said, you know what? Everybody, everywhere, in Jesus' name. Okay, this is our last one. I need you to fill in the blank. I knew I was evolving when
I started to break negative cycles. I had to realize where it started, what I needed to do, because I knew where I wanted to be.
Period.
Yeah.